of the attending physician, where the congressmen, women, and Senate can pay an annual fee of $503 a year. They can use this, which is essentially an in-house office, and that they are subsidized up to 75%. So essentially, what I'm saying to you is, from my understanding, this Office of the Attending Physician is almost next to nothing, or free health care, for the senators and congressmen and women who choose to use that. And it's also coincidentally run by the United States Navy. So here's my question. If the United States Congress essentially has free government-run health care, if they want to use the Office of the Attending Physician, you as an American, not as a candidate, but as an American, how does that make you feel when they are being less than genuine with your fellow Americans? And what is their justification for denying the rest of America what they have?
Well, I don't know about what you're talking about because I just kept my military health care plan.
Okay, well,
I'm not on a congressional
plan.
So I just don't know what they do.
Okay.
The reason I stayed with my health care plan in the military is my doctor, the doctor who gave the 3 brain operations to my daughter, who's now 8, chemotherapy, radiation is in that health care plan, and I wouldn't leave it for anything, you know? So I can't answer your question.
Oh, that's okay, that's fair.
About other members. However, I will say this. In the House care bill that we passed, we made sure that the identical benefits every congressman and woman has is what every citizen now will have. Now, in the bill we eventually passed,
which is the Senate,
which is more the Senate bill, it's almost to that level. It's a little bit less. And that's why the House care bill that I went to 2 health subcommittees on is a bit better. Is it very close? Very close, but not quite. So in essence, you're going to end up with the same effect happening.
Okay.
As far as I believe every congressperson has to pay for their health care bill, premiums and all. I just don't know about the particulars.
Well,
because I didn't pay attention to it, I just stayed with mine.
Well, I have to tell you.
Even if it was better, I wouldn't have changed because I liked what I had.
You liked what you had.
And that's what Americans can do today. If in our health care bill, if you like what you have, you stay with it. And we decrease premiums by about 15% over the next few years, and we decrease the national debt by $1.3 trillion. Why is that important? Because health care, Medicaid, Medicare, overall, is the biggest increase in government spending over the next 30 to 40 years, and we've already begun to decrease that while improving benefits. And so I think that was a very good step we took.
Well, let me ask you this. Could you, if you don't mind, look into the camera, could you please tell all of the senior citizens who are on Medicare that they don't need to be terrified by the propaganda, and explain to them why?
Absolutely.
Because they are told that there's going to be $500 million taken out and that they're going to suffer. We've seen the commercials. We've heard the talk show hosts, other than myself, who are not genuine. We're trying to be nice with the people. So could you please, if you will, speak to the senior adults, and matter of fact, to all Americans, and I'm going to shut up and let you take care of the business.
Absolutely. This bill truly helps seniors. First, seniors will no longer have to do any co-pays or any deductibles at all for preventive screenings. So when you go in for a glaucoma exam, it's free. A woman goes in for a mammogram, free. Why? Because we want to catch your disease early. If we catch that cancer just as it begins, you'll have better quality of life and life. Second, society as a whole pays less than if we catch it 5 years later and a much more invasive type of surgery must be done and expensive. Second, that infamous donut hole where under Medicare D, seniors for prescription drugs still paid their 20% copay, where the government paid 80% for the first $2,600 of drugs. After that, 100% had to be paid out of the pocket of a senior for the next $3,000. We changed that. You'll continue just to pay 20%, saving you enormous amounts of funds for the drugs. As we also take a third step, that law that I mentioned, which did that not good thing, also said that, and this is what our inspector voted for, which I disagree with him, as well as voting twice to privatize Social Security and to cut $285 billion from Medicare to pay for tax cuts for the very rich, is what also, what we did for, on Medicare, is we permit now the government, which had been forbidden to do so, to negotiate for the best price with pharmaceutical firms for the drugs. They were forbidden to do so under the law that our inspector Rick Santorum had voted on together in 2003. Now, what we do is cut out some inefficiencies. So for example, there are seniors who are on Medicare Advantage, and that's fine. Medicare Advantage is one where private companies provide health care, Medicare. It was a new law, again, in 2003. They told the government that they would do it at less cost than the government, but in fact, it costs 17% more to pay a private company to take care of Mrs. Smith than to take care of Mrs. Jones, who's still in the normal Medicare, for the same benefits. So all we did is said, well, wait a minute, private companies, you can still do it, but you got to provide the same benefits for Mrs. Smith as Mrs. Jones get at the same cost. And by the way, you told us you'd be that efficient. So we'll give you a couple of years, but after a couple of years, you're going to have to provide it at the same cost. And if Mrs. Smith wants to come back, when Mrs. Jones is to regular Medicare, we'll do it. But we keep the same level of benefits for fairness.
Okay, and when you become United States Senator Joe Sestak, let me ask you, what do you plan on doing with your colleagues to ensure that the senior citizens and all of Americans do not lose these brand new benefits, and that the Republican Party does not repeal this law? What will you do to ensure that it is not repealed, and what will you do in the next few years to hopefully get us possibly a public option to improve what we have?
Yes, I'm going to continue to do what I've already done since the bill passed. I've already had 2 town halls going out in my district and one outside my district explaining this bill. Because now people have kind of said, okay, it's there, now keep explaining. And so what I believe good leaders do, like in the military, is they just don't, hey, here it is, take it. They sit down like what we call captain's calls in the Navy, where the captain sits down with his sailors or hair sailors and say, look, what's your concerns, let me explain, and at the end of the day, they at least hear from it. And so I'm going to continue to be out there explaining it. And then, as they begin to see, like my daughter,
Right.
who has a pre-existing cancer condition, she couldn't get health care after being 18, and I put her in the long COVID. Now she can. As they begin to see these effects taking place, and seniors aren't paying as much for prescription drugs because we're negotiating more fair prices, and all of a sudden, all Americans, not just seniors, don't have to pay for preventive screenings, they're going to say, you know what, this is good. Will I oppose any right-wing movement to do so? Absolutely, but I think you're going to see Americans are going to oppose it. I think you had another question in there, though.
Yeah, I have
did you have a 2-part question?
I do have a 2-part question, but I kind of forgot that question, so I'm going to go with a different question. There are, I don't know if you're aware of this, there are probably millions of Americans who are disabled Americans who, for whatever reason, they got student loans. They shouldn't have probably had them, because I know I personally have a medical condition, and I went to a school for security training back in 1986. I defaulted on the United States guaranteed student loan. I haven't been able to pay back because the school that I went to, I should not have been able to go. And the problem lies in this. I am not considered 100% disabled, which is what the law, from what I understand, currently is. And even the late Christopher Reeve, actor Christopher Reeve, would not have been considered 100% disabled, from my understanding, according to what I've been told. And the reason why he wasn't is toward the end of his life, he was doing some acting. He had appeared on a show called Smallville. He did some directing. So therefore, he would not have been 100% disabled, because I take it at least, 100% disabled means you could never work again. Well, obviously, if even Christopher Reeve